technology to farmers' relationships. So I'm very lucky to be moderating this panel and happy to be here. As an introduction, I'll just talk a little bit about myself and then leave every one of our panelists also to introduce themselves. I'm an associate professor at the Department of Land, Air and Water Resources at UC Davis. I will say it up front, I love my job, and I'll tell you why. I joined academia because of one thing, because we're only limited by the boundaries of our own imagination. So I would want to invite also the panelists today to dream and think about how we can inspire and be inspired, and how can we, think about building those bridges and building their resiliencies. So when life hits me, when I'm like, that's too much, I remember the best part of my job and I dream, and I'm doing that today. So hoping to connect.
For solar panel manufacturer called Solar for America Technology out of Sacramento. So we have a fairly large solar module factory in Sacramento. It's actually the second largest factory in the country for solar modules, and the most modern one, the latest technology there. I think we'll talk more about products and agrivoltaics and the connection later.
Thank you, Franz. Yeah, we're all amateurs in agrivoltaics, learning how to do it, so don't feel bad. Alge.
So I'm Helge Biernat, I'm the CEO of Sunstar. We introduced a year ago Sunsound, which is a vertical solar system, into the market with the first project we did together with Kevin. And what was amazing was when we launched our website, we got all the hits from 13 countries in the world. We got requests from Africa, we got requests from South America, we got requests from Europe. But we didn't really get requests, from the US. So this is what we have to talk about today. By the way, I'm in solar since 2001. We started with a company in Austria doing solar thermal. So we sold solar thermal modules to Spain, to England, to many countries. So I remember Bernadette was talking about solar thermal in the morning. Yeah, we have done that, on commercial scale. And then here in 2011, we founded Sunstar, a solar installation company. We have installed in 35 states and probably 37 systems, from fixed tilt to the early trackers. We did the first tracker in 2013 in Tucson, Arizona, next to the airport. So that's how we got into this industry.
Can you hear me? All right. Good afternoon. My name is Knowledge Murphy, and I'm the Western Solar Specialist for American Farmland Trust. I am the most amateur of the amateur agrivoltaics specialists on this stage. And I'm here because protecting farmers is such an important part of our implementation of agrivoltaics in the United States. A lot of today's conference was talking from a developer standpoint, and it was not speaking from the landowner, farmer, ranch, landowner perspective. And so we have to make sure that that perspective is considered and advocated for, because if they're not involved, there's no solar going anywhere. And so in that vein, a lot of the work that I do is around educating landowners and farmers. And American Farmland Trust has a solar leasing guide, which we teach people with, and we do a lot around legislation and policy, but I would say educating farmers is the biggest part of my job. It's making sure that folks understand what their rights are, when they should get an attorney, when they should get an accountant, and when they have the right to say no, and to know that this can be a benefit to your land, this could be a detriment to your land, depending on how you roll things out. So it's an honor to be here.
Hi, I'm Kevin Logue. I'm the commercial sales manager for Aztec Solar. We're an EPC, that's an engineering, procurement, construction company based out of Sacramento. We've been in the market since 1980. Our president is the president of CALSA. He's one of the most well-connected people in our industry. Personally, we've been involved in installing solar on numerous wineries and numerous farms, but it was always about the economic drivers of ROI. Now we're talking agrivoltaics, and there's different scales of measurement now that we have to worry about. And I think as a person who talks to farmers who are typically conservative, older, land-rich, cash-poor, and risk-averse, that this is a tough topic, and it's going to take a lot of education. And one of the things that we do as a firm, we go out and we do lots of lunch and learns and educate our architects and our contractors about how to do solar correctly. We see the same kind of model potentially for these farmers, and it's going to take a group effort, but it's going to take that kind of one-on-one education, I think, to get these folks to truly embrace what we're trying to do here. As Helga mentioned, we participated in the first vertical solar installation here in California, a small little boutique winery up near Placerville, and we see plenty more. We have a couple of projects we're working on right now with Caltrans, and so we hope to see this product spread itself, and that way maybe more farmers will see that they're not the guinea pig, and they'll start looking at, gee, we don't have to trade cropland for energy offsets. We can get both. So that's why I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, one of the most rewarding parts of my career is when I talk to farmers, to growers, and to industry partners and collaborators and leaders. You learn a lot. So I'm going to mention a few examples. I can see Bob here at the end of the room. Bob is from Placer County, and when I started talking to him and to Cindy Fake about agrivoltaics, you talk first about the summer part, but then all of a sudden they asked me, can we do something about the freeze and frost events? I'm like, at the beginning, it took me a minute at the beginning to shift my mind from where I was focusing my almost complete attention into somewhere completely different. And those are the kinds of things that you learn when you speak with farmers and growers who have this incredible experience about what they actually need, not what as a solar company, what you just want to sell them. So this session is all about talking, is all about partnership, is all about building collaborations, and I really want to echo the sentiment from the previous session that we need to talk to farmers and growers more, because they know the problems, and they know they even sometimes would think about what the solution is. We just need to have the engineering part of it properly done and do the designs. So I wanted to use this as a tangent to start the first set of questions that I have. And we did a big farmer survey and about what are the boundaries and the barriers to entry for agrivoltaics. Two concepts or two main themes were out. First one is, well, I want to see it. Those photos that you showed me from France, Spain, Germany, Italy, also maybe Eastern US are fine, but I want to see one here in California. So we need to do lots of pilots. Another one is cost-benefit analysis. When will I get my money back? What is it for me? And why not just do a solar installation? So this, Kevin the other day called it the delta. So I'm going to start with you. How can we bridge the delta in cost? Because it will cost more to do an agrivoltaic module than a simple solar installation. So with that, I'm going to go through one round of answers and see what do you think the economics are, and how can we talk to the farmers on that?
That is the million-dollar question, right? Is how do we bridge this gap? In the past, we heard from one of the farmers that there are salespeople out there selling you solar for your house and not doing it very ethically. So they already have a guard up against people like us. And then you also had return on investments that were 3 to 5 years ROI. Well, now with the advent of batteries, and now with the advent of the photovoltaics, this is a much longer proposition. So these generational farms that are going to pass it on to their children, it's a great opportunity for them to see these results down the line. It's not something you're going to see in the next 5 years. This is something that's a long-term play. So that delta, it's just a matter of perfecting, getting the prices down on modules, Franz, and beginning to drive those economic drivers that will allow these agrivoltaic products to thrive. Because right now they have too many variables that are piling on over typical solar installations. So it's a great question. When we figure it out, I'll be glad to share that with you.
Eyes on you, Franz. We'll get to you soon. Knowledge ready.
I was speaking with some of my colleagues on the East Coast this morning, and they shared with me some facts and figures. We have some figures from SEIA, the Solar Energy Industries Association, as well as the Department of Energy on actual costs. So as of this year, SEIA said that the cost for residential rooftop solar is currently $3.27 per watt. Utility scale solar is currently $1 per watt, and commercial scale solar is $1.66 per watt. Now, in 2020, the DOE said that elevated agrivoltaic systems with crops cost $2 per watt, and PV grazing systems cost between $1.60 and $1.73. So when you look at it scale-wise, agrivoltaics is almost identical scale-wise as community scale solar. And we know that community scale solar is possible. We know that agrivoltaics is possible. We just have to find a way to convince folks that this is a model that A, makes money, and B, is sustainable long term.
So a year ago, we did some pilot testing in Arizona. And I got pictures back from our guys out there, and they were standing in the middle of a cotton field. And I'm like, wow, a cotton field in Arizona. That's pretty interesting. So why are they doing solar now? Because they're not having any water anymore next year. And so the point I'm trying to make is, if you want to produce the biomass, you need ways or means or methods, to still protect that with less water and all the other challenges you might face. And to me, it's more about the revenue side than it's about the cost side. We can always talk about cost and reduction of cost, and I mean, by the way, we have the Inflation Reduction Act, which gives you 30% and 10% and 10%. I mean, how much more cost reduction do we really need and want? I mean, this is so much already. We as taxpayers are providing everybody to do solar. And now on top of that, and I'm going back to Majdi's nice, slide in the morning, we're getting the biomass. And hopefully we're getting more biomass with agrivoltaics instead of less. Because if we don't do anything, like the cotton guy, there was no biomass anymore, it's just solar. And maybe the strawberry guys have issues too, because we have too much sunshine and they're burning. So I believe that we have to do something, otherwise the biomass is going to go down.
And this is bridging the cost gap. So these are the things that we need to think about and we start quantifying, because what's happening now is agriculture is not part of any economic model on the energy side, and it's too much to ask for the growers to do all those calculations after they get one piece from here and one piece from there. So this is the delta that we're talking about. So thanks for highlighting that. Franz, any?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to the cost topic. I'm very optimistic about that part. And I agree with Helge, like there's other support, right? So it's maybe not all about the cost, and we know there's other benefits of agrivoltaics. On the cost side, I entered the industry in 2008, so I remember solar module cost being 10 times as much as we have today. And some of you, some faces here are veterans in the industry who have seen cost 15 or 20 times higher than today. So I think the industry definitely has done a great job to bring costs down in general for solar products. Now specifically for agrivoltaics, the designs, the installations are a little bit more challenging, new ways to install, right, vertical, that's not something people are used to, but I'm pretty sure with scale that the cost on those components will also come down.
Absolutely, wonderful.
One last thing.
Yeah.
When we spoke on Monday, I can't remember who said it, but we spoke about the true cost of the food, water, energy nexus, and the fact that that's not been calculated in dollars. But when you start to calculate the fact that we're entering into an era of life on this planet with less water, and this is a way of growing food which we will continue to need with less water, this makes more economic sense the more time goes on. And I learned also that agrivoltaics benefit areas that are hotter and drier more than they do areas that are moist. And so this is going to continue to be an economic factor that we're going to have to take into consideration when thinking about these systems, that is not just specifically the cost per watt.
That's a great point, knowledge, and I want to remind us all of the number that Kara mentioned in the morning about how much acres of land we lose every year to be fallowed because of the lack of water or drought or different problems. Alge, I want to go back to a topic that you discussed, the IRA and the 30 and the 10 and the 10. Let's talk a little bit about the different economic models and the different incentives that are out there now that we want growers to be aware of. Because I get a quote for, let's say, $300,000, and I'm like, I don't have this kind of money, okay, I'm going to delete this email. But when you tell me that, okay, 300K, but you have a minus 30 and a minus 10 and a minus 10 and a potential for funding, and then it can be attractive. So I would like the group here to elaborate a little bit about all those financial incentives and economic models that are out there.
So, someone who does this every day, and we write proposals. In the state of California, you have your 30% ITC, as we know. You get another 10% if you buy American local domestic content. And domestic content, from what we understand, it's 100% of the steel is purchased from the US, and then a combination of 40% on all products that you spent. If you can reach that with a USA product, then you've gotten that extra 10%. In California, there's for commercial, there's also accelerated depreciations to the state of California, which are about 9.5% of the total cost. And then you get an accelerated depreciation from the federal government. That's close to 22% of the cost of your project. So if things all line up, the planets line up correctly, you can get close to 70% of your project offset through tax incentive and accelerated depreciations. So to Helga's point, those numbers, the delta has shrunk considerably today than it was 5-10 years ago. And so we can now, once again though, you're still trying to sell these farmers this concept, and they're risk adverse. So getting them to understand this is still our
Kevin, I would challenge that. It also depends on the farmer probably, right? Because if you have a cold storage and you don't have any power because PG&E has a, hazard shutdown or whatever that's called, then you got a problem with your cold storage, right? So it could be existential for you to just have the power on site in a microgrid with batteries, and then cost does not even matter to you in that regards. And I mean, I'm seeing that, when we talk we just went to a winery this last week, and their roof system is 15 years old and is collapsing. And so they're like, okay, no more roof systems, because definitely every 20 years I have to change that. But I need the power. I need more. And they put batteries in. And not just because they need to, because, they need the power because they have cold storage. So there is another incentive,
On top of the federal incentive that you mentioned, there's also the USDA's REAP grant. And that's another opportunity for landowners to save money on a solar installation in the agrivoltaic system. So when you add the REAP money to the IRA money, now you're starting to see significant savings on solar, and you've shortened the amount of time that you're waiting to get your payback. So if your payback was 12 years initially, but the REAP grant and the IRA have covered, let's say, 60% of your project, now you've shortened your payback to only 40% of the initial cost. That's going to pay back much quicker. And so you start to see the savings in having a monthly electric bill right away, much sooner, and which means you're starting to have a larger amount of money to play with for your farm to consider some of these other opportunities.
All right, well, I would like to move to the next topic that I want to cover today. And for that, I forgot the name of the movie, but in my initial invitation for all of us to have an open mind and dream, I want you to think of, do you remember that movie where a multi-billion-dollar company was initiated based on a concept that was written on a napkin or a piece of paper? So this is what I want us to think about. I want to talk about what I called when we met the other day, the forgotten or the missing scale. So you have the utility scale. Even community solar is something at the order of 5 megawatts. And then you have the rooftop, which is in the kilowatt system. But what's wrong with 1 megawatt? What if I have a 5-acre farm and I want to do 3 acres? And I want genuinely to do an agrivoltaics because I want to move maybe from alfalfa to lettuce, and I want to have a cold storage, and I want to build a system. So you go to developers, and I bet you talk to 10 developers, you'll be lucky if one of them will tell you, yeah, I can do that, because this is not a scale of at the radar of anyone yet, or maybe some, but a very small number. So what do you think are the barriers here? And if we are now to start our own company, what is the secret recipe? What are the ingredients for that? Why can't we go there? I don't know, who would like to start on this?
I would say starting at the solar module, the product, we would say absolutely, that's what we want to do, the more the better. Mm-hmm. The larger the system, the better, the larger the market, the better. A factory manufacturing line typically is designed to manufacture 1 million units a year. So ideally, we have to grow to a scale that we can maybe, possibly with your input and your research, we might have to modify the solar module, right? Maybe there's a little bit of a design change. We love to do that, and the more scale we have, the more likely manufacturers will jump on that and do it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what are we going to do to scale this on 1 to 5 megawatts? That's what we want to do.
Do you want me to sign an NDA? Or
I think you mentioned it before, or some other people up here. We just need installations here in the country to show that. I mean, if you show that to the first one, we need the Tesla model, right? We need the sports car first, you know, and then he's gonna buy it, and you're gonna buy it, you know, and then after that we have the S model, right? And so I'm trying to get in touch with Mr. Driscoll. Let's talk to Mr. Driscoll, right? I mean, he dominates the strawberry market. If we can convince him on one project and we show him how it's going to work, he's going to do it everywhere. And if Driscoll does it, everybody does it. And we need that scale because we need to be faster. This is too slow. I mean, I love, you know, that the universities, and I've been in Tucson and looked at the agrivoltaics there. I love all of that, and we need that data. But it's too slow.
Absolutely.
I mean, we heard Bernadette saying, you know, we have all this equipment, so we need more electrons. Where are they coming from? From utility projects in the desert with no transmission, and the transmission is going to take 10 years. Is that the solution? I mean, I'm having a hard time to see that. Maybe I'm the only one, but we need distributed generation. We need it where the load centers are, so we need it closer by with the farms and combined. That's what I think, but we need to show that. We need to break through with one big boy, and then we can, I think, you know, roll that out, because then all of a sudden, you know, we have a 3 and we have the X model, right? And now we can sell that. No, the Y, sorry. The X is too expensive.
I would say that there's a phrase in hip hop called Miami. Money is a major issue. Companies are in business to make money, so if they see that they can make more money on a larger scale, that's what they're going to go towards. However, we're in a time crunch, and I think we're still, because of our ages, we still don't consider how soon our climate crisis is going to impact agriculture. We need all farms to consider doing agrivoltaics, not just huge utility scale farms. And so I get calls on a monthly basis from small black-owned farms in the Southeast just trying to figure out if this can work for their 5-acre farm, if their 20-acre farm could do agrivoltaics, if they cleared the trees. And it's a model that no one is serving right now. So if we do decide to make this company, I want to be the salesperson, because people are literally trying to find somebody who wants to provide this service for them.
It's working.
It's working. And so I think at some point as a country, we're going to pivot to focusing on that smaller farmer once some type of regulation is put in place saying that all of the larger scale farmers have to include solar in some way or another, and preferably agrivoltaics, to make sure that their farmland remains in production for the foreseeable future.
Maybe a funny story to that, not funny, but I was talking to a developer who is going to develop data farms in Europe. Texan developer coming to me, asking me about, what do I know about agrivoltaics in Europe? Because he knows that he has to, he wanted to have solar farms next to the data centers, and he knows that he has to do agrivoltaics, whether that's in Italy, whether that's in France, or in Portugal, he has to do it, so it's no questions asked. That's what it is, because he has to go to the mayor and talk to him and, hey, what is good for your community, What do your farmers, what do they need, And so I can help you with that. And that's what we have to have here too.
Well, just to echo on that, there's no doubt tying these community solar projects into a agrivoltaic would be brilliant, because the money's out there, the money's been allotted by the state of California. Now let's put our minds together and actually create a community solar that incorporates these components. And it's up to us and people like us that are thinking outside the box and championing this to get out there and get the word across. And we're open to suggestions. We're trying to convince other EPCs like ourselves to embrace this technology and to embrace the whole concept so they can help us spread the word. And it's going to be a major group effort for sure.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, so if anyone has any ideas or suggestions, I would love to see this forgotten scale a profitable and successful business opportunity. It would be really great. And knowledge, I think you saw where I'm going with this. So my target is underserved and underrepresented communities, and those are typically the owners of smaller scale farms. You want to say something?
Yeah, I need to bridge the German thing here for a little bit. So, funny enough, there's a second German TV channel I'm watching once in a while, and they had a whole series about the water crisis. And one of them was Arizona and Southern California. And coming back to the underserved communities, there is a tribe down there. They have huge water rights on the Colorado River, but they cannot reap the benefits of that because they don't have the money. They have the land, and they cannot afford, a diesel pump or whatever pump. And I'm like, duh, if we go out with agrivoltaics, they could power the pump, and now they could also do agriculture down there. And they would get actually the people back into their community from the tribe. That was on the German TV, by the way. So I think that's exactly what we're talking about, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I hope we can make it a duh, because for now I know it's super complicated given how much the cost is because of the scale. So that's why it is a forgotten scale, and this is where I think a lot of impact to those communities can happen when we find a way to make this profitable. So yeah, thank you, Hamdi. Anyone else would like to give a comment on that?
Of course, as the most diverse person on stage. Representation matters. When was the last time you seen a solar advertisement with a black family? You haven't, right? So subconsciously that sends a message, this might not be for me. And so when there's more marketing and advertising, when was the last time you seen a solar advertisement in Spanish? You haven't. So again, there are ways that things can be marketed and advertised to attract different audiences to consider solar and to consider agrivoltaics. Cost is a big barrier. Access to land is a big barrier. However, you brought up a very important point. What does it look like for that 1 acre farm to get an agrivoltaics array? What is it going to take to make a pencil? I think we can figure out a way. It just has to be done. Somebody has to be that first pilot to show, yes, this can happen. We've all heard, I can't say we've all, a lot of us were here today and got to take a look at Jack's Solar Garden. I've been to Jack's Solar Garden. My colleague, Austin, worked at Jack's Solar Garden. It'll blow your mind. But what would that look like if Jamal's Solar Garden was in Watts, California, or Chicago, Illinois, or somewhere like that? It changes the concept for people in that community that you can do both of these things at once and make money and save water and get food. It starts to unlock these doors that people create in their mind because most people's imagination is constricted by money.
Very true.
Well, just about the whole socioeconomic awakening. SMUD, for example, has started a project called Energy Pathways, where they've opened up energy job training to underserved communities. And I think that's a start to awakening by bringing in more diverse workforce. It just starts opening the eyes to others that see them in the workplace. And I think we'll see, once we have more of that, I think you're going to see more and more adoption. That's just my take on it.
I absolutely agree. I was working in solar. I started on a roof. And so when you're up on somebody else's roof installing this stuff, you start thinking, what would it be like if this was on my roof? How much money would I save? What could I do with the money that I saved? And so I think, again, exposure to it will change people's minds once they start really understanding the cost benefits and the health benefits and the environmental benefits and the economic benefits. It will just start to snowball, but people need to see it.
Well, we spoke about cost, and cost is very important. So I'm going to take a new twist to that and talk a little bit about technology and developing new products. And we're lucky today we have some of the key people in the industry on this panel. Franz, I'm going to start with you. In my talk today, I showed some examples of flexible solar panels that can use filters and thin films, organic type of panels that, yeah, they are not going to give you 500 watts per panel for sure, but they are lighter and they can reduce the cost significantly if that's a major part. This is a two-part question. First, what is the appetite of the industry for launching new products, especially that you guys are already very successful, you are doing your products and you are already maybe overbooked, I would imagine, or you have a lot. So is there an appetite for continuously developing new products, and where do you see the industry and the technology leading us if we want to achieve agrivoltaics at that scale?
Yeah, I think on a large global scale, most manufacturers are probably not too interested. They want to standardize. Solar is seen as a commodity product, and you want to scale that up to gigawatts and dozens and 100 gigawatts manufacturing capacities. And there's not a lot of differentiation possible on that scale. But I think locally, now that we're rebuilding the manufacturing industry in the US, I think you will see a lot of manufacturers that are more interested, including us. Our factory, our headquarters is in Sacramento. So we have research going on there, we have a research production line there, so we can do small batch production, test things, play with it. Flexible solar panels, we've played around with it already for car roofs, for example. There's different applications, so we can look at it also. Can we use the same concept in agrivoltaics as well? Thank you.
Algae knowledge or Kevin?
There will not be a solution that fits all the different, what was it, 400 different crops or 600? No, what did you
400.
400. So I think we need to develop, certain products which have a dual use, a triple use. I mean, you mentioned frost. It was interesting. I was walking into an agrivoltaics conference while I was in Germany on vacation, but I just wanted to go to the bathroom. And they had one, and these were guys from apple nurseries, and they had issues with frost and with more hail events. And they were like thinking, okay, can that help me? Now I know that we have also issues with hail events on trackers, but so it's just interesting to hear different stories from different perspectives. So I think we need to hear what the farmers really need. I mean, whether it's the strawberry guys, I see. And I don't understand that either, they have the black tarps and then they have other things above that, Is that just a waste or are they using that again? Can we maybe even help them to reduce the waste of material they're using? I don't know. I mean, that's to be determined, but...
That's another panel on itself.
Yeah, but I mean, there's room for improvement, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
It's interesting you brought that up. I just read an article the other day that was talking about somewhere that has solar panels with wood edges instead of the traditional metal. And I'm thinking, okay, biodegradable panels.
How about bamboo?
Yeah.
Why not? And so I think as technology continues to grow and expand like it does in any other industry, we'll see new applications of the technology. My colleague on the last panel was speaking about automation on farms. We're going to be moving in that direction. And when we begin to automate things, we're going to see things become more and more efficient because they're running off of data. And so the more we get going in that direction, I think we're also going to see farms morph into way more productive systems. And we're also going to start seeing, unfortunately, AI is going to figure out better ways to farm. And once we start applying all this new technology, it's going to bump us into another echelon of how we look at food.
Yeah, so early 2000s, there was a company called Unisolar that was in the market, and they had an adhesive thin film. You could peel the back off, stick them on metal roofs. The military would sew them into canvas. So you had all these applications, but the cost per watt, especially because the rest of solar was so high, they were twice as high as everyone else. Of course, the return on investment was seriously diminished. But for what we're looking at now, that was a product that was here too early, I believe. That's the type of product that can come back and help now. Someone had mentioned the project in Turlock with the Delta. We're considering right now a military-grade canvas with a sewn-in module fabric stretch across tension bars across the Delta to diminish evaporation and have an energy source. So that, once again, this was a technology that was here early 2000s and went away due to cost, and that type of product, I think, is primed for a comeback.
Wonderful. We already have a company, I'm seeing.
Yeah, but right now that company is primarily a military-grade solution. So it's convincing them now to come back into the public sector.
Okay, I want to give some time for for folks to give some comments. So I'm going to ask one last question, also along the lines of thinking outside the box. What are the different opportunities that all of a sudden growers have access to a good, decent amount of energy coming out of their own land? I'm thinking about storage, about hydrogen, about cold rooms for improving produce, just wanted to give us one last space and opportunity to think outside the box and try to provide some ideas that what can we really do with all this new opportunity.
Benefit. As soon as you said that, I began to think about if I was a farmer and I had this new source of income, what are some of the things I might invest it in? I might invest it in growing marijuana. It's a very, very lucrative cash crop. I might invest it in an EV semi-truck and begin shipping my own produce around the United States. I may begin looking at Bitcoin mining. I might look at generating other streams of income. These are all things that run off of heavy degrees. I know that's not popular in this room, but these are things that run off of high amounts of electricity. And so now that you're producing electricity, you can start to consider some of these other things. You brought up microgrids. I think that's the no-brainer. Making farms resilient in the face of power outages to make sure that if they have that cold storage, their cold storage stays on regardless of what's happening environmentally. So I think benefiting from the other aspects of this energy abundance is going to be the way that folks start to go. And I think it's a no-brainer. Once you start to have the excess energy and or revenue to do other things, you're going to start to think about what else can I do that's profitable and or beneficial long-term to my land.
I like Majdi's approach, of maybe exchanging the crop and maybe have that cold storage because I have the energy. I'm having a hard time to get into these PPA discussions because I think, if I would be in charge of my farm and I would have the money, I would go merchant. I would actually, store the energy and sell it when it's really worth something to others, which is in the afternoon. And tomorrow it's going to be at night when the EVs are going to be charged. I mean, there is going to be a time frame and a crunch and people are going to pay for that. I think that is better than, 3.4 cents for a PPA, with PG&E. So they're going to fail again and file for bankruptcy again. So that's a different topic, but that's what I would do, yeah? So to see, but it's risky, I get that. And the banks, they don't like that yet because, you don't have the profile to show them, so you really have to finance them. But probably your approach is much safer to go into a crop and you can sell it on the market or in the local community.
Franz or Kevin, any other thoughts or? Okay, well,
The other thing is that agrivoltaics allows certain things that wouldn't grow in a particular climate to begin to grow. With the NREB demonstration plot that they have in Golden, Colorado, one of the things that I learned was agrivoltaics extended the crop season. And so I think it was cucumbers they were growing. Everyone else's cucumbers had grown and been sold at the farmer's market. And so 2 or 3 weeks later, they come with this new crop of cucumbers. They were the only ones. Well, people were desiring cucumbers, so they satisfied that demand.
And sold them more expensive.
Well, because it was NREB, they did. But it opens up that door now that I can begin to look at different crops and crops growing and being harvested in different parts of the season. So again, the technology begins to shift how we think about farming and what's possible.
And that's how I see it going full circle back to resiliency. This is not just about energy that we want to sell at a cheap rate, but rather making the most out of it for the growers and for the farmers and creating opportunities that will even upcycle the entire process rather than just think of it as this and that. And yeah, the sum of those two is higher than the sum of the parts. It's already a win, but I'm looking at even a bigger win in that. So. Thank you so much for all your comments, and with that I'm going to open the floor for any comments or questions. We still have a good 10 minutes.
Hi, Bears Guerrero, Slagra. Just to continue Knowledge's thoughts on the capabilities of agrivoltaics, no question that it has the potential to extend the growing season, but it also has the benefit to assist the grower. And a good example is the grower of wine grapes. There is proven technology that the vineyards that are currently premier, for instance, Napa, Sonoma, the ones we all know, having difficulties with climate change. And they're running into the situation that with higher heat, they end up with crops that are being produced with higher sugar content, which leads to higher alcohol content. They have problems with acidity. And by using agrivoltaics to control the amount of shade that gets onto the wine grapes, you can control the acidity, you can control the sugar content. This has been proven in a 5-year study in France. So that's one of the direct benefits.
I'd like to suggest that maybe that divide comes because the 5 megawatts is going into more of a wholesale market, whereas the rooftop is more of a retail market. So you're getting retail value. And the two have diverged. So rooftop tends to be microinverters, and the numbers were quoted $3 and something versus $1 up here. And when I asked the question earlier today about what's the approach for this, the answer came back immediately, self-consumption, which is looking at retail size. And so my question for you, sorry for the long question, is do you think the strategy should be more focused on behind-the-meter retail value, in which case you need to be looking at storage and other things, or should we be sizing these, because a lot of farms are bigger, so 5 megawatts may be 25 acres or something. And if you don't want to do 25 acres, then should you just be looking at behind-the-meter sorts of applications? And then does that balance with the demand?
Excellent question. Thank you. Who would like to?
Not even specifically about agrivoltaics in this case, but I think the answer in solar is always all of the above. Small, large, very large, niche applications. We need all of them to meet the energy goals that Bernadette mentioned earlier today. We're way behind, so any size of system needs support to be deployed more.
I think, with the current system, it's also a question whether I can do virtual net metering, right? Which would be awesome for 5 megawatt projects. If I can offset that with, let's say, I have multiple grocery stores where I'm selling my produce. I mean, that type of setting. But we'll see if that's still possible in California. I think in Texas, not a big deal. You can do that, and people do that. So yeah, and then what Franz said, it's all in the above.
I would say that this is one of the areas that this conference is beneficial to us all, because one of the things we could actually do is start a partnership on looking at market and economic analysis to figure out what would it look like to have utility scale behind the meter for residential, where they get the utility type of payment for behind the meter. And so I think as things continue to go in this direction, other economic models will start to pop up that people will consider. And so being that we're in such an early stage of this energy transition, we're kind of just going with what is. But I think also as technology becomes cheaper, we will also consider ways to make this more viable and appealing to the landowner, to the farmer, to the person who owns the solar and has that behind the meter system.
Yeah, to echo what Helga was talking about, virtual net metering or aggregation, there's a vote tomorrow at the CPUC which could completely derail the virtual net metering and aggregation market, whereas they will now ask you to sell them your energy on your multifamily housing or your farm, and then they will sell it back to you for a much less rate. That's going down tomorrow. We don't think they would do it, but we didn't think they would switch from NEM 2 to NEM 3. So so all these are great, but we're kind of beholden to the policymakers and what are they going to decide that's going to dictate what happens in our industry. It's very frustrating for us in this area where we're always optimistic, right? We're looking for ways to skin that cat, always optimistic, and then we always have a bureaucrat that's stepping in and muddying the water. So right now we're all kind of in a very, it's a very shaky space right now.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Arslan. I'm a Humphrey Fellow at UC Davis. Thank you very much for your insights. But my question would be to Mr. Helge. So you mentioned that you need a demonstration to the new users of the agrivoltaics. And if I am a company, I would just install a pilot project and invite people to see. But what is your strategy to introduce this to the market, to bridge the gap and make it attractive to the farmers? Thank you.
So we are installing the vertical solar system as we speak, on the East Coast, on the university campus, and that's going to be used with cattle. And so those are the projects we obviously need, to show everybody. And we heard it before, cattle is awesome, grazing, and you can still use the hay if you need to in the season. Yes, I mean, we're installing, I think, next to the canal pretty soon, rows. So we're trying everywhere, but we also need to get the buy-in, and then we need the assistance of the universities to take the data, put that into papers, so it's also tangible, right? Because just telling people that, yeah, it's going to work, and you're going to be happy, and there's going to be income, that's not going to be enough. So we need data, and we need to share them, and unfortunately, we cannot take just the French data and the Italian data and say, look, it's working, just get it done.
Hi everyone, my name is Chinedu from Birmingham City University, England. I am from the public health background, and this is my first time in a meeting where agrivoltaics is discussed. So I do have a lot of confusion and questions. But first of all, I just want to ask, has there been any known negative impact of the solar panels on crops? I'm more concerned about the agricultural side. And secondly, I see a lot of CEOs on the platform, and I don't know, in Africa where I come from, we do have a lot of sun, and of course we know global warming, global climate change is a global problem. Do we have any form of research of how agrivoltaics could benefit properly, or probably maybe set up in some angles to help out agriculture in those areas? Because I know if they are comfortable, they will be fine where they are. They won't come to disturb anybody, like, if you understand what I mean. Those are my questions. Thank you.
I would start with maybe France. Can you talk about the coating that you have? So the silicon part might contain some heavy metals that if in contact with water might seep, but if you can talk a little bit about the manufacturing process. I'm not aware of any life cycle assessment studies that have spoke about any health impact. Rebecca, if you know, let us know. But this would be my thought. Maybe if the industry can give us an idea about the coating and how this happens, that can address the question.
Just funded a grant to look at this work. The potential for contamination on soils. Most people think it's negligible, but we have to do the work
Absolutely.
to prove that it's not a threat, which is important. And that'll happen across all of our different applications for solar, including on water.
I know this is an active area of research, but there aren't any results out yet.
Yeah, as far as I know, the mainstream solar technology is silicon-based, right? Polysilicon, silicon, which does not have a negative impact. There are thin film technologies that use other chemicals, other elements as part of the solar process. I cannot speak for that part, but the mainstream, I want to say 80-90% of global solar is silicon-based, polysilicon-based, where I don't expect any issues from there.
When I traveled to Jack's Solar Garden, one of the things that I learned was that there were some crops that they had planted, and because of the morning dew, which would slide down the panel, their crops were rotting, or it was causing the panel, the food to go bad. And so they realized the angle that they had the panel at was impacting, that crop because that was one of the crops that actually needed more sun during the afternoon. And so they began to figure out, okay, well, when we have our array set up, we actually need to consider which plants need morning sun, which plants need afternoon sun, which plants would benefit from morning dew, and which plants would be bothered by it. And so I think that's something, as we continue to go and do more research, things like that will come to light. And as far as your question about agrivoltaics in third world countries, I know that there was a delegation from Ethiopia that recently visited the Oregon State University Extension to learn about how they're using agrivoltaics in combination with dry farming. So I think there's still a lot to be learned. 30 seconds.
To add on to this, I spoke with Greg from ASU, and he was over the summer in Kenya and Tanzania. And they're building 2 projects there together with the local government. And I think foremost, they're going to use the power for the pumping. That's number 1. But then obviously, they're going to shade also the crops. And they're going to identify which crops they can use in that area. And so, which is really beneficial to the whole community because there's a food source now and they can create jobs. So, yeah, those are little projects. I mean, that's probably not what you're talking about. And I had that conversation at noon because obviously Africa is going from a population perspective like this, So if we can stop Africa in burning fossil fuels and using, the sunlight for crops and for electricity, that would help us all.
Thank you. Okay, I was given the 3-minute sign 5 minutes ago, but I'm going to allow if you can give a quick question.
Okay. I'm Val, again, doing research on the socioeconomic barriers to agrivoltaics. I'm coming from Monterey County, where Driscoll has a lot of berries planted, so, Ozzy, want to connect and we can make contacts. But I want to bring up the revenue question and how to create that, right, in face of the changes with them. Recently, California just passed SB 253, and so that's going to require all public and private business that has higher profits than $1 billion annually to report their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And so what that may mean, and I want your guys' insight to this, is that once they start reporting, then they're going to realize their impact, and then they're going to have to find ways to then reduce or eliminate. So are you considering, let's say, the carbon economy or carbon markets as a way to offset the inability to sort of charge what you like to charge for electricity?
This can be a whole panel, but we need to give very quick answers.
A quick one, if I can. So I posted actually a blog about ESG requirements and what I believe, it's going to happen because Walmart and Coca-Cola and all these guys, they're going to push it down the throat of the farmers, in my opinion. Because if they're getting pushed by Wall Street that they have to comply with all these things you mentioned, then, the farmers, somebody who has now the electrical truck, right, and is using his agrivoltaic system to decarbonize the whole operation on the farm is going to be the front runner to be listed to provide the sugar Coca-Cola or Pepsi need. To me, nobody's talking about that. We had the last agrivoltaics conference, nobody was talking about ESG requirements. And I believe, because this is big money and it's Wall Street, right? They're gonna ask you at some point, is it, oh yeah, the truck is now electrified, yes. Now show me, what are you doing on your farm?
Thank Any other quick comments?
That's,
Okay.
by the way, the reason why it works in Germany to bring that German aspect in and finding these big fields because of that ESG aspect.
Right, because you're required to. In America, we're not there.
So
Yeah.
that's what Helge is mentioning. That step already happened. There's like show me the fields where you're growing that stuff, and if that method's not sustainable, you can't buy your crops. You can't buy your produce in the ground, and that's what I think will drive it in California. So.
Yeah.
There's another sales pitch then for the farmer, getting them on board, right? Getting ahead
But
of
they
the
need to read about ESG and what it means, you know. And but they can read it, you know, as I did, you know, on our blog. I mean, I just go to Walmart and see what they've written, you know. And I would assume that actually the shareholder is going to check on that. There are third parties controlling that, right? So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for all the comments. Thank you so much for this wonderful time.
Thank you, Martin, and all panelists. So for our final presentation, I would ask Brian from Calchem to be back on stage, and he will close out